to Rosa in a few minutes, but first we will have Li come and talk to her hero, Sybilla, who is a Majorcan amazing fashion designer who many of us are very lucky to have witnessed in the past 2 decades. And for those of you that are not familiar with her work, you will be discovering her for the first time, and it's quite an inspiration. So maybe we'll get Li to come on, and
while Li comes, I'm going to get Sybilla to come up here. And I just want everyone to know this is a woman. I have tried to follow her path all my life. I came to Madrid and I had a little studio in a street called Juan. And as I barely spoke any Spanish. And I would come and I would sit down and have my lunch in this beautiful little street where this woman had an incredible, incredible shop. And I remember sitting in front of this shop and going, oh my God, this place is incredible. And I would just go have my lunch there, sitting on the floor in front of this store, completely covered with ivy. That was just magical in the heart of Madrid. And when she finally decided to throw in the towel and leave and go into the mountains, I had the good luck to buy the shop from her. And I always felt her spirit was there blessing me. I just want her to know that. And I'm so grateful for the way she's treated this event and how she's been so incredibly generous to host her at her house and with her family. I could not be more grateful. This is an incredibly generous human being, and I just want to thank you for that.
You want to stop talking and Li will just come.
Yeah.
Stay here. Yo quiero que Sybilla te vea. Porque, ahí se ven. Perfecto. There's a lot of people waiting to hear him.
So when I reached out to Sybilla, Sybilla is very shy, as you can see. I don't know why, because I mean, she's on every single mood board that I've ever seen anywhere because of her clarity of vision, her aesthetic, which is so marked. And I had the good fortune to actually go through her work once. And without actually having met her at that time, what was magical to me was her decoding of color and mythology. It was like she had these very specific 7 colors, and they were meant so. I mean, I'd never seen someone work with such clarity of color and what it meant in terms of. So to not know you, but know you through your work first, and then get to know you. It was like, for me, when I met you, it was like I felt I knew you. Because your work was so authentic. It was so different than anything I've ever seen. And when I started talking to her, she said to me, what do you want to talk about? And I said, I think we should call this talk Been There, Done That. Because she's literally been there and done everything that all of us are trying to do now. She's literally done that. I just want you I would love for you to talk about how you got to the island and a little bit, because there's a lot of people who know you just for your work, but don't know your story. And it would be beautiful if you want to share just a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, I arrived in Majorca when I was 16 years old. I ran away from home. And I immediately felt that this island was my home, my place. And it was the place I used to recharge and to hide and to keep my sanity as things happened. You know, they happened very fast. My career in fashion, I really didn't have time to decide I really wanted to be a designer, and it was already big and going. So Majorca was always like my grounding place. And it was also the place where I could do a school to learn the things I felt I didn't learn in schools. So that influenced very much my work. I'm here, sorry. I was just gone.
I enjoyed the little bit that you were missing.
Yes, so you left your home very early, 16, I think, and you went to Majorca. And you are, and you became an anarchist. And in a way, I feel you are still a very sophisticated anarchist.
but through your work, both in fashion and in humanitarian and ecological questions, that comes true. So how does that feel to, what is the difference between an anarchist then and now?
Oh my God. That's a question. Well, I think when I was 16 and I was here in Spain, it was just starting, and it was just I just went out of school, and I was very idealistic, and it was just, you know, I want to change the world. Where do I go? Where does it start? And at the time, that's what it looked like, even though I had time to be deceived and to see that that was not the way. But it served us when we were young. We created like our own community, and I realized, for me at that moment, the way of making things different or a little bit better was just collaborating with people to create a different reality, and that's a little bit how it worked when we were young. We really managed to invent our business without being professional, any one of us, and doing things our way. Yeah. And further on, I don't know if it's anarchist. It's just trying to be coherent with myself. And that means I jumped from the boat many times because I didn't agree where it was going. And I tried to find a way that felt aligned with what I believed. I don't say that that's a good thing to do, but I tried to be true to myself. And I'm still trying. I'm not that I've managed, but I try.
You seem to be pretty good at it because you start up again also. So you have first a very famous big brand, then after 20 years you stop. Then you start again, becomes pretty famous in a different way. Then you stop and then you start again. And you told me that now you might start again. So there's still always this itching for making beautiful things.
Yeah. I do love my job, and I do love to create beauty. But my life could be the story of a designer and in the world of business, of fashion. You know, I've crashed several times. I've gone through all the different periods. I felt like I stood up, and now I'm trying to find a new way to come back that, for me, suits the strange times that we're living. Because, well, I think I've been lucky enough to be working for 30-something years now, I think, on and off, but yeah. So it's like if I lived different worlds, different moments.
Yes. When you started in the 80s, which was the heydays, I would say, of fashion, and it was also Spain suddenly becoming very much on the map creatively. Almodóvar, Mariscal, yourself, Sybilla. So it was very strange suddenly that the world sort of turned to Spain just after the Olympics, I remember. So the Olympics was maybe sort of the opening. Not that we didn't know Spain, but Spain was a destination for mass tourism and not for culture and beauty and design. So that, is there a momentum or a reason what happened that happened?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. It was a strange moment. It was a super creative and explosive. Well, for me, I think it was kind of natural because I always say I was a teenager at the same time that Madrid was a teenager. Like it was, you know, after Franco, when all the creativity started and everybody wanted to do things in their own way. I think it was not pretentious, but everybody, it was always about expressing ourselves and being individualistic. It was not so much about watching what other people were doing And creativity was a way of making friends. And for me personally, it was very much a way of expressing myself, because I was very shy. But clothes was, it was all about going to places and meeting places, and it was a very special moment.
Yes, and before you started your own line, you had a sort of a school at Yves Saint Laurent, where a friend of a friend took you in and put you in the last atelier of making couture, all Spanish ladies, so that was very being home. And this is where you learned, I guess, what is the real secret of couture and making. But at the same time, she was very critical of Saint Laurent. She felt it was really bourgeois, you told me, and really sort of too straight and strict. And so then you went on your own and something happened and you created a completely new silhouette and behavior of clothes. So how did you come to that language?
Yeah, well, first, the thing about Saint Laurent, when I was younger, I guess I was more arrogant. And I used to say that in Saint Laurent, I learned what I didn't want to do. But now, today, I'm incredibly grateful, and I realize I learned so much there, and I learned so much with Anne-Marie Munoz, that was Yves Saint Laurent's right hand. And now I really realize it was a great school just seeing her work. And well, as a designer, I never went to school. I really learned from seamstresses. So first it was the seamstresser that worked at home, was, fixing things with my mother, and then the seamstresses in Saint Laurent, and then mostly the seamstresses that I hired through a newspaper ad, and I started with them. And that was, couture, well, sewing was really a big part of Spanish culture. It used to be flamenco, bullfight, and sewing. So there was this generation of women that really, really, really knew how to sew from nothing, from a piece of fabric, and they could do everything and everything perfectly and fast and without thinking. And so I was lucky enough to work with that generation of women, and that was a great school. And
then the eclosion of your clothes. What happened?
Well, I didn't last very much in Yves Saint Laurent, because that was also the time Madrid was supposed to be the most fun city in the world. And I had a boyfriend there, and probably it made more sense to be in Paris, to be the assistant of the assistant of the assistant. But I came back to Madrid, and it was a miracle. The story of my career is just that I was in the right place in the right moment. I arrived in Madrid, and it was just the moment that the world was looking at Madrid, and I was a girl of 20 years old that was doing clothing in a basement. And when journalists would come, they would show him, the painter, the sculptor, the movie director, the comic drawer, and I was kind of the designer. And yeah.
But you have a system of not starting with sketch, so you turn everything around, right?
Well, I really didn't study fashion, so my way of doing clothes is a little bit the other way around. And I don't know if it's good or bad. Certainly it's more expensive. I really do very open sketches, and then I mold the clothes, and I work on them and correct them. And when I feel it's finished, then I draw it, and then I do the pattern. So yeah, it's more like my way, yeah.
But what is for me in my memory, what is so important is that Romeo Gigli and yourself were both two designers, one from Italy, one from Spain, completely changing this female silhouette. Because in your Saint Laurent time, everything was very shouldered and strict and military, uniform and assertive. And then these two people came, let's say from southern country, and they gave women, they liberated us from shoulder pads. They gave us round shoulders. They gave us a cocoon and egg-shaped sort of wraparound systems. Finally, I think it's a part of, for me, emancipation, is that we were allowed to be strong and female instead of, trying to be like men.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a gift, I think, in fashion history, that's a gift, which still is very important because I'm sure that your archives are visited because that softness is still, in a way, something we are craving today, even maybe more. That's why it's good that you come back. But yeah, how about that? What is that mood, that feeling, that feminine being?
Well, I don't know if I'm able to see it because I guess I always try to do things very differently. Sometimes round, sometimes square, sometimes soft, sometimes rigid. But I know in the beginning, my first collection, the second was called, I don't know how to translate it, Seduction, Comfort, and Laughing. That was really what it was all about when we were young. So it was clothes to seduce, clothes to surprise others, and clothes were also like a joke, like a game, like to be playful, and also to be comfortable to discover the world. So yeah.
The playfulness you told me was very much coming also in the second round, where you started again on the shoestring.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just humor and sort of stamina to continue. So can you tell us about this second coming and how it is different, giving you that energy?
The second one, or the second one when I started evening wear?
I don't know precisely. Whatever you think is your...
Well, I don't know. I had many different periods, but no, this last one, it was. I think for me, it was more about being of service to women. I think when I was younger, it was more about raw creativity and kind of expressing myself. And I think with the years, I've tried to learn how to be myself, but also be always aware that I'm in service of women. I think we are in a moment that women are in very special situation, and having the privilege of dressing them up and in a way that it could give them strength or joy or confidence. Well, that was very much also influenced by my own experiences as a woman. So, yeah, and doing pieces that people can fall in love with, that you can really feel that they're like a friend, that they support you, that they give you strength when you need it, that they make you stand out when you need it or disappear when I think I've learned more and more like the magic of clothes, and that's what really pushes me, when you see a woman looking at herself in the mirror and all of a sudden she lights up, that strange moment that happens to us, that's like the drug to keep on going.
Yeah, I get it.
And I don't know where it comes from. I know I look for it, and I know I really enjoy being in the stores with the customers. This last round was very much about doing pop-ups around the world and seeing customers and and really enjoying, customers playing with each other, with the clothes, looking at themselves in the mirror. That was the best feedback ever.
To give. You also made a wonderful collection in Mongolia of cashmere felted materials in amazing colors. Can you talk to us about that adventure?
Yeah. Well, there are two different adventures. The felt project was not done in Mongolia. It was something done with artisans in Spain. Then it was clothes that was molded like hats with felt. What was very beautiful is that it could be produced by people that were unemployed, and we were able to create like a different production line, and it was a very creative project.
So you would make molds?
It was crazy, but anyway, it was a good way of, because it's like, you know how you do felt with wool and soap and creating coats and pieces and working with colors, and that was very beautiful. And the Mongolia project, it started by a small factory in Mongolia run by women that they wanted to do something to help local herders, because they were in a very difficult situation by Chinese cashmere and the way they were exploiting cashmere in Mongolia. That's a long story, but anyway, I started working with them to create a line for this concept of Mongolian cashmere that would be done in a more sustainable way. And then I was able to keep on working with them to develop like whole looks in cashmere, and it was really beautiful to work with that factory and to create. For me, it was some of the more useful pieces that I've done, in the sense of clothes that gave joy to people. The prices were affordable. I knew the whole process from the herder and the goats to the last customer that bought it in New York. So it was a very beautiful lesson.
That's many things. And then you also made a collection in still work with Japan, where I sometimes can witness your clothes, thank God, because then I can stay in touch. So how was the experience with Japan? Because that's so extraordinarily different.
Well, Japan was a little bit like a miracle that appeared in my life 20 years ago. That they started to be very interested in my work at the time that my designs in Europe were more like collector items, and they were not so mainstream. But the Japanese, they got the brand and they started to develop it there. At the beginning, I was not interested, but when I flew there, they were opening a store. I got sick and I had to stay in Japan, and I really saw how they managed to bring my work to the public, and they were really passionate. You know how Japanese used to be in the 80s, and that they were really very perfectionist and they had incredible techniques. So we really managed to make some beautiful things there, and lots of loyal customers, and lots of interesting industries. And I think other designers in Japan very much just put their brand in the things, but we really got involved with the industry. So we did manage to make some very special things with these incredible artisans and technicians.
This was a fabric industry and
everything. Like we did amazing collections of umbrellas. You know, we managed to create new patterns in the umbrellas and new shapes and in the clothes and the techniques for sewing. Well, with the years it has evolved, and I'm not, the company was sold, and I don't feel I'm so in control of what goes on there. But anyway, it was a very good school, and I always say Japan in a way was like the gym for me. It was like, it's like my second period. You know, first it was, you know, Milan, Paris, fashion shows and making very extravagant things. And then Japan in the 90s, it was, well, when I started to have babies and everybody in my team had babies. So it was about selling in Japan. That at the time it was like the most competitive market in the world because everybody sold there. So I really had to learn my job and what it meant to work with the industry. But since I was very stubborn, I also wanted to do things my way. And so we were, at the moment, we were a really good combination with their structure and perfectionism. And I learned a lot about industry, about timing, about how to be myself, but also be sellable and all that, be a little bit more domesticated. And yeah.
Right. Functional. Well, I do remember many of these collections because we would used to go to Isetan and they have a floor with sort of more avant-garde clothes and packed. So it's pretty hard to see the different brands, but I could spot your brand from the other side of the floor because it was color, which was standing out as being so uniquely different from everything else. And that is some of your recipes, I think, and I want to know more about it. You say it's like cooking, so how do you cook these colors?
Well, I don't think very much about it. I just choose what I feel like, and I do combinations that feel right. And I usually just I have bags and bags and bags of little pieces of colors that I've collected during the year. So it's really amazing, like to see like how one year I go for the pinks and the greens, and then all of a sudden it's cold and I want the reds and the orange, and it's this orange and not this orange, and I just, yeah, it's like eating, like when you feel like eating cucumber with miso sauce or with mustard. It's just for me, colors nourish me and they give me strength and joy. Yeah, I guess that I try to dress for emotions, or I try to create from emotion and pleasure. So I try to do what gives pleasure to me and moves me, and sometimes it works with others.
And there's always the black, white, and red.
And black, white, and red, yeah, that works. That works for me.
That's the Spanish side. Huh?
Yeah, well, I guess it's also maybe an image that could represent my contradictions, Yeah. And me always wanting to make a little bit of everything. When I have a collection, there's, as I told you, the things that are very square with angles, cubist, and there's things that are super soft and they're bright colors and they're smooth colors. And I don't know very well to edit myself, so I always try to find ways. So,
for the outsider, it looks pretty edited, I guess. And now there is this huge archive of yours, which is assembled from all over the world, I guess. And so what is happening with the archive? How do you feel when you see it? And what are you going to do with them?
Well, my brand now has a new owner, and he's a fashion collector, so we are working on the archives, and they're also planning an exhibition. So,
where is that going to be?
Well, I guess the first one will be in Madrid, but yeah, it's a strange feeling to looking at the archives. I was telling you the feeling. It's all the crazy time that I spend on each of those pieces, and all the weekends working and all the nights working and all that. I still wonder why and for what. But, it tells a story of the last years.
This brings me to the other side of you, because you are a rebel with many, many causes. Not everybody knows that, especially not outside Spain. But you are somebody who's not just doing fashion. You have a foundation which is called Fabrics for Freedom. You have a foundation organization, Education for Life. You design permaculture here on the island. You do an eco zone in Dominican Republic, and so on. So we need to know much more about this. We need to have a little bit more insight. What is the Fabrics for Freedom, for instance?
Well, first, I'm not an example of anything. I'm just trying to support things that I think are correct, and I'm
That
learning.
is what interested for us.
Yeah. Fabrics for Freedom was a project. You know, I sold my brand years ago, and I stopped working on it. So that was for me. And at the same time, we had here the school and the courses, and we brought Vandana Shiva, that I think many of you know, an Indian activist. We brought her for many years to Majorca. And I was very involved in all the thing of seeds and, how do you say, transgenic seeds? Yeah, GMO seeds. So it started with Vandana. I wanted to create a foundation that would give me what I didn't find at the time as a designer. I wanted someone to tell me the other side of the fashion, you know, where it's produced, how it's produced, what are the materials, what are the best materials. I wanted someone, you know, okay, I knew more and more as I kept on going that fashion was a very impactful business, and that many things that we were doing were wrong. You know, you can, for a few years, you can kind of look at the other side and say it doesn't matter, but quite fast, I think in my 30s, it was like getting very difficult to continue to do fashion knowing what I knew, and I couldn't. But at the same time, fashion business goes so fast that you know, at the time there was not many resources about finding how to do things on the other way, and at the same time I was always pushed to be in time and good price and good production. So it was very difficult to start improvising, and even though we did it and we tried to support different, once I did a wool collection with a woman that dyed things by hand with plants, and I almost killed her. You know, it was, I thought I was doing a good thing, and it was like the worst thing that ever happened to her. So the foundation,
Almost killed. Why was she?
because she was overwhelmed of the amount that they had asked her and how to, you know. So there was really not too much knowledge about how you could do things in a different way. So that was how the foundation started. And we did some projects with Vandana Shiva. And then when I got back the brand, and I started, it was the time for me to walk my talk when I got back the brand second time. So there I tried to implement many of the things that we had developed through the foundation and that we had worked with other designers.
That was early on.
Yeah, well, kind of early on. But, you know, I can't say that everything was a huge success. You know, I tried many things, and certainly were the things that gave me the biggest pleasure and the biggest joy, and were really nice adventures. But I think in general, there's still a long way to go. You know, now lots of people talk about it, but how much of it is greenwashing? You know, you know, the idea of Fabrics for Freedom was that fashion is a business that moves so much money and so many people that it should be able to create blessings on the way. So that was a little bit the idea. How can you create blessings in different moments of the process?
What is the problem?
Nothing. There's no problem. Just charge. You are so electric, you women.
And so the education part, you have a
What?
school.
Well, not.
Where
We do educational courses, but I can't say. I wish that one day it would be a stable, ongoing school on crafts and in other things, but School of the Land. Right now it's workshops, events, encounters. I didn't study, so this for the last 20-something years, it was my way of learning from people that I admired, and I'm very lucky that we managed to bring people over that I really admire, and after I was able to work with some of them.
And what type of students would you know?
All kinds, local people, people that came from abroad, young people, old people. Also a way of bringing people together. That's another of my passions, and making people meet each other, and celebration, and yes.
Question is, isn't that just the school of the future, that it's open and permanent learning and so on?
Hopefully, yeah. And a way of making friends, and something, what I can say that I am very proud of courses that we've done here. It's not only me, we're a group of people. We created years ago an association that's called Poc a Poc, slowly, Majorcan, that the idea was to help make utopias become reality. And we managed to pull through some crazy things. But what was beautiful of the courses is that many people that started coming to those gatherings, many of them have developed really interesting projects.
Yeah.
And many people have developed beautiful friendships. So, and a sense of community.
So it's a success.
Well, that is a success. Yeah. I can't say that everything in general is a success. But...
And how about the design of the permaculture? Because you're a designer of fashion, so how can you design, farming? I'm so curious, how that works in your mind, and how do you go from one to the other?
Well, it sounds big, like it's not a big, I studied permaculture when I was younger, and I was really fascinated by that. I really felt, but my mother was a fashion designer, and
your grandmother was also...
and my grandmother was kind of into fashion also. So I feel that I was into fashion in a way, like to finish something, or that language came to me. But when I studied permaculture, and it's called Design for Permaculture, it was like an immediate passion and feeling that was really what I was looking for. And very much of what I learned in permaculture, that I recommend everybody to look into it helped me to implement many of those ideas into fashion. There are many rules in permaculture that you use for agriculture, but you can use them also when you create a collection. It's quite amazing. And then I think as you get older, when I was 18, I wanted to design dresses. Now I want to design communities. When I was 30, I wanted to design vegetable gardens because I had small kids. But I think it's the same thing. It's everything is designing. It's imagining something that you want and trying to create. I guess I don't know if I'm a good designer. I'm good in thinking what I want and trying to figure out how to make it happen, and maybe package it to sell it to others. So that's a little bit what I've tried to do with, and it's not me alone. I work with some amazing people, and I also, that's another thing that I really believe in multidisciplinary teams, where it's, the genius of many people combined to tackle projects in a systemic way. That is, for me, very much the future. Not going for one goal, but for a systemic approach of things, with different minds thinking of a project from different points of view.
And the work you do in South America, is that another?
Well, for the last years that I didn't have the company, I dedicated myself more to that. And
what exactly is it?
It's a multidisciplinary team to design agriculture projects. So, but I am just one more in the team.
Okay. But you know how to design.
But I know how to dream, and I know how to try to make my dreams come true and to find people that can help me do it.
Now I have one last very burning question from all of us here, but everybody out there, few hundred people in the World Hope Forum. We are here to create hope for the future, and to help each other to change the world we're in. And it's also a personal question. Since you are a fashion designer and you love clothes and you love beauty and you love color, and you're doing also all these other activities, which are much more maybe important for the world or for change and have a more dramatic impact, and is this other side of you. And I think almost all of us have this strange life where we are still, completely seduced by things of beauty and color and so on. And we also are dedicating time to completely different activities. How do you, as a person, combine these two things? How do you bring that in your own soul to be one being? And how do you get that act together?
I don't know. The better I can. I think it's all about love in a certain way, about the love you put in what you do, or the love you share with the people that you're doing with it, or the love that you want to show others. For me, clothes is like a touchable love that, sometimes when a woman buys a dress for herself, it's an act of self-love. And when she goes beautifully to a party, she wants to give love. And I don't know. For me, that was a little bit through all the things. It's like love and light, even if it sounds a little bit strange. But it's, when a group of people come together, when we make a presentation, when we make an opening, that I always like it to be a nice party where people get to meet each other and people laugh and learn and share and are touched by beauty. I think it's very much about being human. What does it mean to be human? And I think that now we really need to think about that. And I really believe very much in us as human beings. We're much more than what we believe we are, and we have really huge capacity of transformation and of dreaming and creating a new world and a new reality. And I would really love people to believe, that we do have that possibility. We're a little bit more than just another animal on the planet. And we do have that spark, and we can communicate it, and we can replicate it, and we are powerful. In this moment that, with all the thing of machines and transhumanism and the internet, I really feel we have to be aware of what it is being human, and our capacity of loving and of bringing light and of touching other people's hearts through whatever we do, and I do it with what I try to do it with what I know, but other people do it in different ways. And I think it's so beautiful what you are doing, touching people's brains and just kind of lighting them up. And, I really admire you for that. And I think that's really, we're so amazing, like a species, what we can really do. And we're in a moment that, if we really wake up and we start moving, and connecting and doing things and dreaming big and working together. That's another thing I think it's really important. Now it's not about, it's not about one of us doing something. Well, for me, it never was. For me, it was always the team. But you know, if we really get together and we combine, we can really do incredible things for the world. You know, I think it's not anymore about beauty. It's, you know, like today, art is not revolutionary anymore. You know, in Picasso's time, it was revolutionary. When I was a teenager, you know, if you dressed in a certain way, that was revolutionary. But that's not revolution today. You know, but what is revolutionary today? And we do need a revolution. So I think we all have to figure out, you know, we are working in a business that touches many people in different ways. So you're going to figure out what is to be revolutionary. And you're going to tell everybody, and you're going to say that's the trend. Yeah, that's the new trend.
You're giving me a big stuff. Well, this is the perfect ending of I don't know, amazing event. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love you.
I know.